Okay, welcome back, and welcome McKellar Ward candidates. All right, so just a quick reminder of how we'll proceed. So we'll first start with each candidate getting the opportunity to introduce themselves, 60 seconds each for introduction, and then we'll move into the question and answer period. So each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question. You'll have the light system similar to the last one, green light during your first minute, the yellow light during your second minute, and by the time it turns red, your time is up and you've got to wrap up. Okay? Yeah.
So it's either, it gets hot in
Yeah,
here,
we got it.
Or it gets loud.
or it gets loud. So we'll try and balance it out.
Okay, perfect. All right. So to introduce the McKellar Ward candidates, we have Brian Hamilton, Stephanie Danilko, Corey Bagdon, and Laura Paris. So I'd like to let Brian take the lead and introduce himself in 60 seconds.
Okay. Thank you, and I hope you can hear me all. Welcome, everybody. Thank you to the Thunder Bay Public Library for hosting these events, and to the other candidates for joining the race. Of course, I am Brian Hamilton. I've been the ward councillor for the last 4 years on City Council, and I am your change candidate. And what that means is, even though I'm an incumbent, my way of doing business in government is different than what we've seen typically over the last several decades. I believe in holistic planning, and I believe that we as a community really need to kind of not tackle issues singularly, but we have to look at the needs holistically. Everything is connected. You might not think that taxation and addictions are, but if you look at the cost of growing emergency services, you'll know that indeed there's some synergies there on your final tax bill. So anyway, I'm Brian. I have a daughter who's 7. I own the Bean Fiend Cafe in town. I came into politics as the president of the Bay and Algoma Business Association, which was basically my first revitalization project, and I did that in conjunction with the municipality when they fixed Algoma Street. As the president of the association, we formulated the Buskers Festival, and we started making a more walkable and vibrant area using culture, arts, and community to coalesce a strong neighborhood. So in addition to that, as your ward councillor, I have been busy minding budgets. We've done 4 budgets, and I have to say that sometimes I am the councillor that says no to some things, but I've said yes to a lot of things too, and we've been able to accomplish a great deal. We've rebuilt the conservatory. We have a bunch of projects, including both downtowns being revitalized in the next couple of years.
Sorry, Brian, that's your 60 seconds.
Oh, sure. Anyway, thank you. Yeah.
All right, Stephanie.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming out. I appreciate your time and your interest in meeting us all. So my name is Stephanie Danilko. I am not political whatsoever, but community is extremely important to me. And what I don't see unity within our community, and I think that's incredibly important. I think it's very important also that we bring representatives forward, and we have this idea that these representatives are going to create change. But the thing is that each and every one of us is a representative within our community, and that I do believe that if we choose to come forward in honesty, uncensored, within integrity, I do believe that we can make change. And every single one of us, that it's important that we recognize that what we see here in our community, and not just our community, but globally, is just taking accountability for the choices that we've made, where our money goes to, and just understanding that when we have these ideas like, oh, this is politically funded, oh, we're getting money from the federal government, guess what? It's your money. It's all of our money. And so we see a lot of the places where our money is going, and and there's no accountability, and this is very, it's rich in government. This is almost like a culture. And so we need to put pressure on the representatives that are there for the people, but each and every one of us, we really need to stand up, because guess what? You're all the leaders of the future, every one of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Corey.
Hi, my name's Corey. First of all, thank you to the library for putting on this wonderful event. This is a great opportunity to interact with the community on a level that is actually pretty new to me. I'm really excited to be here. I think that there's a lot that we can do toward community building, and that's basically the main goal that I have for my entire campaign. I want to talk a little bit about the concept of public goods first, because that's really what all of our municipal government is all about. It's all about managing and maintaining these public goods. So like the roads, the parks, and things like that, but also more complex ideas like our education or physical and mental health. These are all public goods that everybody has access to, which are really different from regular goods where only people who have enough money to pay for them can access those goods. So it's really important that we focus on building these public goods. We got to increase investing in these public goods. We have to improve access to these public goods. And most importantly, we need dedicated public servants who are going to manage and maintain these public goods. To me, that's the most important thing. Those are the 3 pillars of community building. It doesn't really matter who we choose in an election. We're all here. We all have a common goal. We all want Thunder Bay to be a little bit better. We might disagree on how to get there, but we're all here with the same goal in mind. And that kind of takes this election, it's not really a competition between us. There's not going to be a champion here that gets a trophy or anything like that. This is for me, this is a job interview. I'm here because I want this job. As soon as the election happens, if I'm the one who's elected, I have certain responsibilities, accountability, role that I have to play that affects everybody who voted for me and the people in my ward who didn't. So that's what I'm here for. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. All right. Lori.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lori Paris, and as you can see, I put my name forward to be the next McKellar Ward Councillor. I'm a businesswoman, a writer, an advocate for the vulnerable and youth in our community. I am a mother, grandmother, and I am a wife. I have helped in the revitalization of both the north and south side of the city through my business investments, and I work and have lived in the ward for many years. I helped advocate with many good people for the rebuild of Dease Pool for over a year. I also advocated through a deputation before City Council for the postponement of the building of the indoor sports facility until we dealt with the negative effects of the virus COVID-19 and had sufficient funding in place from other levels of government. I am an engaged citizen, and I have the skill, time, and energy and commitment needed to be a city councillor. I get things done. I fight for what's right, not for what's easy, and I will bring my constituents' voice to the table inside City Hall. Thank you to the Thunder Bay Public Library for the opportunity to share tonight. I look forward to the evening ahead.
Thank you, Lori. All right, so we'll move into the more formal question and answer period. So similar to how it ran before, we'll kind of go down our list of questions. So you'll get 1 each, and there'll be 3 rounds. So to begin where we left off on question 20, we'll start with Brian. So Brian, we have gaps in our physical as well as social infrastructure. Many feel that our community is at a breaking point in terms of the social issues that we face and that social services have not kept pace with the problems. What kinds of strategic investments in social services would you undertake, and how do you intend to fund them?
Well, this is a very good and important question. So one of the things is we've done a lot as a council, and just only less than a year ago, we actually put $1 million aside for a capital investment in anything from transitional housing to anything that outside organizations may need to provide services for their members and their clients. I think it's important here to remember that, on the addictions and on a lot of these community initiatives, it's not a city council. It's not that's going to be leading the charge. We're talking about outside organizations like Onwa and Elevate and Matawa. These are the organizations that we as a council have to be, we have to be the conduits between these organizations and the machinery of administration. So where we can and when it's appropriate, we need to work together. And it is appropriate because there is everything from crime to all the social effects that come out of addictions and a lot of these social gaps that are missing. So I think it's incumbent on us as councillors to not recreate the wheel, but in fact to be conduits for the organizations on the front line of these issues and to help them tie into the machinery of government.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Stephanie, question 21 is for you. Abandoned homes, derelict properties, vacant commercial space, and polluted industrial land abound in the city. Legacies of deindustrialization, underfunding by the police, and a hollowing out of our downtowns by strip malls, big box stores, and online shopping present unique challenges to the future of our city fabric. What is your plan to revitalize neighborhoods and combat the degradation of the land base?
So I think a lot of the answer comes in the form of the question. So if we look at where we are, that is because of our choices. So I was born in 1976. So I grew up in the 80s. I grew up where the mom and pop store was across the street and 3 houses over. So that's where we chose for our money to go. So I wanted to say something about the polluted industrial land. So for me, I actually find it a crime that we have the industries that are around here that pollute the land, that pollute the water. And I ask, how is it that they were able to be there to have a business and not be accountable for the polluting? You know, and a lot of that really falls on us, that we need to stand up, we need to be a voice, we need to be accountable for our choices. You know, there was an owner, his name was Sam, he had the Great Canadian Video Network. So that's where I was getting my DVDs from. So it came to the point where the digital revolution came to us and things became convenient. And so a lot of people decided, this is what I'm gonna do. I was one of the people that, like, given my age demographic, I was actually, nope, I don't wanna do that. So I didn't wanna have a cell phone. I wanted to support these stores. And so when the box stores came, you know, like, we looked at the prices. So a lot of the small business stores, like the price for something was double the price that we can get at a department store, you know, and so a lot of people did that because that's what we can afford. But we need to look at putting money in our community. Like when you look at the Walmart here, where's that money going? And we're choosing to uphold that by going there and putting our money in. So the answer is really on every one of us. It's not just on council. Every one of us has to just take a look at where are we choosing to put our money, because this is the future that we have chosen, and we can change our mind. You know, we can really look at ourselves and decide, is this the future that we want? Because it's not a future that I want.
Thank you, Stephanie. Corey. The city owns a diverse array of publicly owned properties for a wide variety of purposes. We own golf courses, commercial office buildings, sports arenas, and parking garages. All of these are capital expenses that the city must maintain, often at taxpayer expense. What should be the set of guiding principles that determine the kinds of buildings and facilities that the city should run at taxpayer expense?
Thank you. I do think that it's really important for everybody to recognize that it is up to the city to decide where we want to put all of our tax dollar money. I think that's really, really interesting. Mostly because when it comes to spending money, I think it should be up to our communities to decide where it goes. I really don't think that any one person knows enough about what our community needs to be able to dictate where these funds go. So I really think we should listen to demand. We should listen to what the community wants, what the community needs, right? So there is demand for an indoor soccer turf, for example. There is demand for certain golf courses. Sometimes this demand will shift. There's a little bit less demand for Victoriaville Mall, for example. So I think the guiding principles that should determine where those tax dollars go should be based on what the community members want. And that's what our jobs should be as elected officials. It should be up to us to listen to the community and to put our tax dollars to use for them.
Right, thank you. All right, we're going to jump back up to the top of the list. So question number 1 for Lori. The City Council appoints the majority of the members of the Police Services Board, with 2 councillors sitting and 1 community representative appointed by council. This allows council to indirectly shape the future of policing in our community. What strategies would you like to see implemented by the Thunder Bay Police Service to address crime in our community?
Our ability to deal with crime at the municipal level exists solely with the Thunder Bay Police Service. We need feet on the street with walking patrols through known problem areas in the city. We need a multi-tiered approach for policing that ensures that we are not incarcerating people who are dealing with mental health issues. And we need to continue to partner with social agencies and advocate for continued funding for these programs. We need to lobby the province and federal government to develop programs such as SCAN. And I've talked about this in 2018 when I was running for councillor at large. Safer community and neighborhoods. Bylaw officers cannot shut down trap houses. Bylaw officers can tell you to take down a campaign sign that is on city property. They can make you cut your grass if it's too long and a neighbor complains. They can ensure that the signage on your business has been paid for. If not, they can fine you. But you can't remove trap houses from communities by using bylaw officers. This has to be done through the Landlord-Tenant Board right now and the Sheriff's Office and the help of the police at this time in Thunder Bay. So we need to advocate at the provincial level to get them to implement the SCAN program in the province of Ontario. I believe when it was up in front of the Liberal government, failed in the third reading. In other provinces such as Calgary, it's working very well, and these trap houses can be shut. And then what's also happening in Calgary is because that program is working so well, they now have drug court. So when they're taking people, there are programs for the people that were in these trap houses to be able to get treatment and then go through addiction court, drug court, as opposed to the criminal court. But there are rules that if they do not continue with the treatment, they will go back into the criminal justice system. And they're very pleased with what's happening there, and we could bring that here to Thunder Bay.
Great. Thank you, Lori. All right, moving on to the second round of questions. We'll continue down the list. Question number 2 for Brian. Small businesses employ about 2/3 of the Canadian workforce and are a critical part of our neighborhoods and communities. How would you use city resources to support the local small business community?
Well, that's a great question. And just being a small business owner, especially in a district that's blighted by a lot of crime. Right now it's shoplifting, vagrancy, intimidation. People just don't feel safe to come downtown in a lot of ways. And that goes in both cores. And that even goes to the Bay and Algoma where my business is located. So part of my strategy and what we've been doing is creating walkable neighborhoods. And part of that is going to be the elements that we're building into the design, final design in the Victoriaville project. That's certainly what we're looking at the walkability components that are going to be highlighted in the Waterfront District Rehabilitation Project. And so creating a walkable, I had somebody call me just the other day, and they were kind of worried about a bump out in front of their business, and they wanted it to be parking because their customers didn't feel safe. And I kind of just reminded them that it was actually important to create walkable spaces so that it is safe, and then we have to make those investments and actually indeed make a more walkable community. So the small business is asking us for investments in infrastructure. Red River Road, for all the development that you're seeing with businesses down there right now, Red River Road is probably one of the worst roads in Thunder Bay right now. And I think we as a community, it's incumbent on us to meet those small business dollars. And there's millions of them in that district right now, and there will be in the future in Victoriaville with proper, adequate, and appropriate infrastructure developments. Another thing that is important to do actually is to reach out to the Chamber and to the CEDC. And those are two organizations that are involved and immersed in the business community, and they can offer often the best recommendations on how to move forward on everything from zoning, housing, and indeed we're seeing a lot of the actual advocacy for social issues coming out of the Chamber. And another thing we did as a council was update our transit and make transit more affordable. And that was a big component as well, make accessing small businesses more equitable for everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. All right, Stephanie. Seniors are a growing segment of our community. Over 40% of residents are over the age of 50, with the fastest growing demographic being the 70-plus crowd. How would you help our city evolve to meet the needs of our seniors?
Well, presently in the high schools, we have 40 hours of mandatory service. So I think that it would be a wonderful idea within the high schools if we implemented mandatory service for the elderly. And this really gives an opportunity for young people to interact with the seniors that we have within the city. Also, one of the things that comes to mind is Red Cross. So Red Cross in the past, I don't remember what it was called, but it was similar to home support work, just on a little bit of a lower scale. So I really see an opportunity for jobs in that field, and it's very, very fulfilling. Like right now, I'm doing volunteer work for a family. I'm working with a lady that has Alzheimer's, and this is the first time I've ever done this in my life. And to be honest with you, I was scared going into that because I had no idea what I was doing. And but it was a very open communication with the family, and they trusted me, and I went in there. And one of the things that I started to do, I thought, well, I'm going to bring my iPad there, and I'm going to download some songs that she would have listened to and she would have enjoyed. So when I started to do that, initially, there was no communication, and it was a jumble of words. But what started to happen with the music, and as I was singing to her, she actually started to sing with me, and the words were coming back to her. So I think it's very important for us to really realize that we can learn so much from the elders that we have within the community, and for us to really step forward in our heartfelt caring that we really have as human beings. And by doing that, everything really starts to flower and bloom. And you know what? It's like, this is love, because at our core as human beings, that's really what we are. We are love. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey. Question 4. Homelessness is a major issue for Thunder Bay. With winter approaching and the recent cancellation of Shelter House's SOS program, our homeless population is in an increasingly precarious position. What will you do to address the challenge of homelessness in Thunder Bay?
Thank you. So homelessness, in my view, is really an example of our community, our individual community members' needs not being met. I'm personally not an expert in dealing with homelessness, but there are some fantastic programs and institutions within the city who are experts at those things. Unfortunately, we did lose one of those programs recently, and I think that is a big problem. So as a counselor, the best chance I would have would be to listen to those experts. They are in touch with the people who need these services the most. They know how to deliver these services, and I think as a counselor, it would be my responsibility to ensure that those institutions get the funding and the resources they need to be able to address the needs of those community members.
Thank you. All right. Lori, number 5. Indigenous people are central to the future of our city. Indigenous residents are a growing share of our workforce and are dynamic entrepreneurs and cultural leaders. Yet Thunder Bay has a reputation for racism and discrimination. How will you help address issues of systemic racism and discrimination so that Indigenous people feel safe and welcome in Thunder Bay?
Education is key. Education about the true history of the First Nation peoples. Understanding their culture and traditions. Changing the negative narrative in our families that many of us grew up with. I certainly did. I have spent over 30 years engaged with the Indigenous and Métis community, not only in our region, but in Manitoba, Alberta, and British Columbia. I have danced the Sundance. I promised myself I wouldn't get emotional, but I have. I have danced the Sundance with the Ojibwe people. I have participated in hundreds of ceremonies as I practice Native spirituality in my daily life. So do my children, and they are handing down those teachings to their children. The Indigenous, the first people of this land, are compassionate leaders, and we as a community need to help build the trust that was broken. All we can do is walk the walk now, the one that we said we're going to do. No more talking. And when the Indigenous feel it is safe, they will walk through the door to meet us, and not until.
Thank you. All right, and to begin the last round of questions for our candidates. Brian, zoning has become a hot-button topic as the soaring cost of housing has highlighted the impact city planners have on the availability of affordable homes for city residents. Please describe one aspect of the recent zoning bylaw change that you support and one area of zoning that you feel needs to be changed.
Well, housing and affordability are topical for a lot of people out there. And if you own a home and you're lucky enough to own a home and you're locked in, or your house is paid for, or you got an affordable mortgage, congratulations, because if you're out in a rental market like I am, housing prices are an issue, and rental prices are an issue for a lot. McKellar Ward is actually home to 40% of the rental units in Thunder Bay. So rent is an issue, and affordability can only be addressed really when we add inventory to the market. One element that I like in the housing in the new zoning law is the urban infill and the intensification. Ironically, this is actually something that needs a little bit of massaging for me, because it's also an issue. So it's actually going to be in part of the negative consequence of the zoning. But that we can take single-family homes and convert them into multiple units is important. Families are shrinking. I also sit on the DSAB in my capacity as a counselor, and before it was, several years ago, it was people were looking for bedroom homes. Now they're looking for single-person dwellings, bachelor apartments, and one-bedrooms. The face of our society is changing, and I think the needs of our community are changing. So that urban infill is a critical component to providing the housing inventory that's needed to keep rents and home prices affordable and living affordable. But ironically, that's actually the negative thing as well to some degree, because now, that isn't. But what is actually is the parking issue. Sorry, I just got it mixed up a bit. The parking issue actually, and the lack of parking provisions in the downtown cores can be an issue, and that is because the parking is going to now take place in adjacent residential neighborhoods, and that's an issue that I have that needs to potentially be addressed. The parking provisions, the elimination could cause undue stress in adjacent neighborhoods to the downtown. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Brian. Stephanie. Thunder Bay has an extremely large footprint, which drives up infrastructure costs. We service an area the size of Montreal without the population or tax base to match. How would you approach plans for new subdivisions and the supply of the city's land that is slated for development?
So right now, we have rich contractors that are buying the land. They're clear-cutting the land in the fragile ecosystems. So then they're building the houses, they're selling them, and then guess what? So the taxpayers have to pay for snow removal, for the infrastructure of the road. So what I would like to bring forward is that after the contractor sells the houses, that a percentage of the profits goes back to the city, so that goes in a kitty, and then that money then offsets what the taxpayers would have to pay in order to, for the snow removal. Another thing that I think is actually very important, we need to look at the ecosystems that we're ruining. We have a lot of birds that are coming in, and they're nesting. We have a lot of animals, and we're taking their home away from them. So instead of clear cutting, we need to set something in place where, of course, some trees are going to have to come down. But what about these old, majestic, beautiful trees? And dare I say it, that in Thunder Bay, we don't even see some of the ancient trees, because the white pines that used to be prevalent here, they're gone. So if we go to some places in southern Ontario, we can see some of those trees. But you know what? Our children and our grandchildren, they don't see that. They don't see that in nature. We see these 20, 40-year-old trees, and this is what the kids think is normal. It isn't normal. So we really need to have respect for the land, because the health of the land is the health for all living things and us. So we really need to understand this and have a relationship with the land and to respect that. And when we're seeing this disrespect coming from other people, like we need to stand up and we need to say something and say, you know what, like this is no longer acceptable. And this really comes from us, it comes from the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey. Thunder Bay's roads suffer heavily in our climate. With the mounting infrastructure deficit and taxes continually increasing, how would you tackle the issue of roads and transportation in our community?
Thank you. So the roads have been a pretty major issue when I've been going around and talking to members of the community. Really, I look at it, there are a few issues. Our climate does put a heavy load, a heavy demand on these roads. It's hard to build roads on solid ground when the ground isn't always solid all year long. There's definitely issues with funding. There's a limited amount of municipal dollars that get distributed to these infrastructure projects, to fixing roads, and it's up to council to decide who's going to be prioritizing the distribution of those funding. So we can't find more money, so how do we solve this problem? I think our best approach should be to try to minimize demand. So we know that our climate is going to be changing in the future. So we know that the conditions with which we build our roads is going to be changing in the future. So we have to come up with some long-term adaptive solutions that are going to address these issues. And realistically, investing in more accessible public infrastructure. So instead of just using the roads for cars, we can make the roads more walkable. We can create more bike lanes that reduce the demand, the wear on the roads themselves. I think creating this active transportation plan would not only benefit our infrastructure budget, it would also make things a lot easier on our own personal budgets as well. If I'm using my car less, I have to pay for less gas, so that's less money out of my pocket. It's also better for my physical and mental health. It's also better for community building, because if I'm out riding the bus, I'm interacting with that community on another level that I'm not used to if I'm just driving in my car. So really, there are a lot of solutions to some of these road issues, and basically we have to reduce the demand on the roads. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, and the last question of the evening goes to Lori. The previous council has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on consultants and preliminary work on a proposed police headquarters and an indoor sports facility that were never built. Would you prioritize or deprioritize these large capital projects, or are there other priorities you believe council should address first?
The priorities in the city council right now and administration are not the priorities of the community. I got to hear that and see that clearly when we were all in the heat of COVID-19, when many of us had lost our jobs, closed our businesses, couldn't find childcare. It was a tough time. I have spoken publicly through letters to the editor and a deputation to City Council about the building of the indoor sports facility. I do see value in a multi-purpose indoor sports facility, and I am firmly in the yes column for a well-designed, affordable, centrally located facility with access to transit and at the scale the city can financially support without substantial taxpayer expense. The police station at this time, the way that it is designed, has a price tag that just is unaffordable for the city. Priorities are homelessness, crime, and addiction, and the condition of our roads and aging infrastructure. And many of the candidates that are running in this election, including the mayoral candidates, believe this also. We have heard loud and clear during this election that we need to make different priorities in City Hall, and we need to do that with a new council moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I want to thank all the candidates for attending the event. By being here tonight, you show that you value the library and appreciate the critical role it plays in bringing our community together. And I'd like to thank everyone in the community who came out tonight or is watching at home.
Thank you.
You know how important it is to be informed so you can exercise our most cherished right to vote and choose those who will lead our city forward. I'd like to remind everyone that advanced voting begins October 5th with the final day to vote on October 24th. So make sure you're registered to vote, and please reach out to the city's clerk's office should you have any questions about the election or where you can cast your ballot. There are more events to follow tomorrow and Thursday, as well as the culmination event of the mayor's debate on October 12th at Waverly Branch. I hope to see you all there. All right, thank you all, and good night.
Thank you.